Okay, no problem. Thank you, Dr. Professor Lanka. Okay, so I'm very happy, of course, to come here and to give a lecture here. I'm really grateful to you that you have remembered me and you have called me here. Now, so my esteemed colleagues, my students, both present and past particularly. So, as Professor Lenka has said, that this is a topic that on questioning the legitimacy of fact-value dichotomy. And so I will be speaking on that. That means basically I will be speaking, I will try to show that why fact-value dichotomy is not really tenable, okay? I mean, untenability. So that's why I said that legitimacy of, can we really legitimately hold this kind of dichotomy? Okay, now, this is something which we all know. It's a long-standing kind of dichotomy, that there is an absolute separation between fact and value, okay? Now, both fact and value, they have their respective grammar, okay? Now, historically, if you see, it was first introduced by David Hume, and later on, it has a very far-reaching philosophical implication, not only for philosophy, for human knowledge as such. Then there are others also, like the famous economist Adam Smith, for example, okay, who wrote this book called Moral Sentiment. He was also very much influenced by this fact-value dichotomy. Now, and then subsequently, logical positivists, if you see, that they take this fact-value dichotomy as one of their cardinal principles, okay? And it is really something which has become the hallmark of scientific methodology. That is, scientific judgments are factual judgments, right? I mean, they have nothing to do with value questions. So scientific judgments must be kept separated from value judgment. But here the first question lies, why this dichotomy is so sacrosanct? Sacrosanct. Why it is so sacrosanct? Why it cannot be questioned? People take it as a kind of, how are you? You have come here. I'm really delighted and honored that you are here. Probably, all of you know Professor Bipin Srivastava, a well-known physicist and our Pro-Vice Chancellor and everything. Okay. I have a very long relationship with him. Anyhow, let's not go into that. So, you see, therefore, I mean, scientific judgments or factual judgments, I mean, it has nothing to do with value. So this kind of absolute separation between fact and value that is maintained not only in philosophy, but it is maintained in human knowledge system as such, you see. And as I said, that this separation has been taken as the hallmark of scientific methodology. But this is where the first question comes, that why is the separation so sacrosanct? Why it is necessary that we have to maintain this absolute dichotomy? The answer is, of course, simple. The answer is that values have no place in nature, and because they are not observable or perceptible properties of nature. You see, values are not. Facts are the properties of nature. Whereas values are not properties of nature, facts are perceptible okay, or observable, at least theoretically, but values no way are perceptible or observable properties of nature. They are basically subjective and emotive. Hence, a rational discussion about value is not possible. In contrast to this, facts are objective and they have truth value. That means they are either true or false. You see, an emotive judgment, a value judgment, as it is defined as emotive judgment, because it's an expression of your own emotion, okay? So, therefore, it is subjective, and therefore, they do not have any truth value. And if that judgment or sentence, if it lacks truth value, then it's not possible to have a rational discussion, okay, on that. But in case of scientific statements, what happened that, there, you see, scientific statements are objective because they are concerned with facts and therefore they have truth value, and science is the out and out objective because it is factual and therefore rational discussion is possible. Now, this is where I have really questioned it. Not I have questioned it, it has been questioned at this point, okay, that this one is objective, therefore it has truth value, therefore the discussion, therefore it is rational, therefore it is discussion possible, whereas the other is subjective, emotive, lacks truth value, and therefore no rational discussion is possible, and therefore there should be absolute separation. Now, this is where the problem lies, this kind of absolute separation between the two. The entire stand on fact-value dichotomy is an expression of a certain dogma. Okay, it is a kind of a superstition of modernity, I might say, because the modern mind is like this. The modern intellectual scholarship is this, that we have to maintain this strict dichotomy between the two. For this, I have given two-level arguments. One is epistemological and the other is linguistic argument. The first argument that I have taken my fundamental clue from Professor Achille Belgrami. All of you know his name and probably many of you know about his work. Okay, so borrowing from Achille Belgrami's idea, I have shown values are perceptible and observable properties of nature. It is not that they are not perceptible or observable properties of nature, but the argument is that values are perceptible and observable properties of nature. This can be best seen in the way we, as agents, we function. Okay? Now, this is where this whole question of fact-value dichotomy, okay, it is connected with agents, the way the agent functions. Okay? Now, the argument is that essentially we are trying to derive this conclusion that values are perceptible or observable properties of nature, and this can be established on the basis of how agency functions or the way the agency functions. Okay. Now, if facts are observable properties of nature, so are values. This questions the subjective, objective kind of distinction that we were talking about. Now, at the second level, okay, that is what I call the linguistic level, okay, I have tried to show, following Hilary Putnam, that facts and value are intrinsically related to each other. Okay, they form a kind of an entanglement. I mean, essentially the point is that ethical statement, if you see, there is nothing called ethical statement as such. Okay, I mean, in all ethical statements, you will find that there are facts and there are values. Okay, these are not two components. but they are entangled with each other. Okay, so he introduced a concept called thick ethical concept. I will come to that later. Okay, so let me first come to this epistemological critique of fact-value dichotomy. I mean, facts are perceptible in nature, that I have said. That is the kind of received view, whereas values are desires and moral sentiments. You know, Adam Smith used this word, moral sentiments. He has his book. So now, basically, people respond to this in different ways. Now, if this is so, that is that values are perceptible. If this is so, that values are our desires and moral sentiment. If this is so, then how can you establish that values are perceptible properties? If values are really desires, my expression of my desires and emotions and sentiments, then how can they be the properties of nature? Now, in this context, take this term threat and threatening. It's a value term. You see, threat is a value term. Okay, threat and threatening. Now, consider this is an example given by again Akhil Belgrami. Now, the example is this: the example of threat. Right? He's saying that a fisherman from Bangladesh, okay, suddenly he saw in the horizon dark clouds, okay, and lightning, okay. He has gone fishing, okay, and suddenly he saw in the horizon that there's a dark cloud and lightning. So the moment he saw that, he sees a threat, okay. Threat is the very place where he sees the dark cloud and lightning. The moment he saw that, okay, in that very place, he saw the threat. Okay. Now, it is the very situation that is the fisherman, okay, seeing, okay, dark cloud and lightning. It is the very situation itself that gives us the threat. Now, here, if you see the description, what is the description? Description is the dark cloud and lightning, okay? That involves, the description itself involves evaluation, okay? To me, it may not, but to him, he himself, okay, he describes this, or you can describe that, and that itself involves certain kind of evaluation for him, and he finds it that it is threatening. Okay, now take another example. Cruel and cruelty, as you know, they are very well-known value terms. Okay, now this is an example given by another philosopher who is very well-known. I've forgotten his name. That is that burning a cat. Okay, now it is this. The example is this: that someone is driving his car, and suddenly he saw there is a kind of blind alley. Okay, there a few children. Okay, they are burning a cat. Okay, now this is something which is no doubt it goes without saying that it is something which is extremely cruel. Okay. Now here, if you see that burning a cat, okay, on the road, okay, or in the blind alley, okay. Now that itself is cruel, and cruelty here, cruel and cruelty, okay. So cruelty here itself is a visible property, okay. Now science doesn't study, of course, cruelty or threat, okay. Now science instead it studies combustion and condensation, because whenever there is a burning kind of thing, you really study it in terms of combustion, and whenever you look at this kind of vaporization and all these forming clouds, you see it as a kind of condensation. Now, this is the kind of, these two examples are there. Now, given this, one can see that how really visible properties, okay, or how visible observable situations can involve, okay, evaluation, okay, or moral evaluation, right? But obviously, the critics will not accept this kind of situation. Critics may point out cruelty and threat, which we are saying that visible properties, they may say that they are not properties of nature at all. Okay? They will say that, look, they essentially, their status means the status of cruelty, status of threat, and the status of all other value terms are essentially at the states of mind. Okay? That means the various desires and feelings. Okay? They are not really visible properties. They are actually, if you see their status, they are really the states of mind, or states of mind and expressed through desires and feeling. But these feelings and emotions are really projected onto nature by us. Okay, so I am seeing, and I see that this is cruel. So basically, it is my feeling which I am projecting onto nature. Okay, I am seeing a situation that is threatening. Okay, now what happens is that I am projecting my feeling, my desire, okay, onto nature, onto that particular situation. So it is simply an illusion to say that they are properties of nature. Okay, they are not properties. We are really projecting our feeling onto nature. And therefore we are trying to conclude that they are really properties of nature. This is where we really come to the issue of agency. Because you say, how will you resolve this situation? If you say that values are the visible properties of nature, and if the answer is that no, they are not visible properties of nature, they are simply our projections onto nature. Okay? So how will you really, how will you really refute this, this argument? Now, you see, this is where people bring the whole notion of agency and how really agency functions on the basis of value. Now, when we say that how agency functions on the basis of value, you see, there we are really, we are all agents, right? And this is where we say that we have two perspectives on ourselves, okay, as agents. We actually assume two perspectives on ourselves. First perspective is that we are detached and disengaged perspective on nature. First is the disengaged or detached perspective on ourselves. Okay? That means I see myself as object and not as subjects. Is that okay? So this is the disengaged or detached perspective. I look at myself from a detached way. Okay? So therefore I look at myself as object. These are very well known to many of you who are doing philosophy. Okay? Now, so next is the second perspective, that is where we see ourselves, okay? Or the next is that the engaged perspective on ourselves. One is the disengaged perspective on ourselves, and the second is the engaged perspective on ourselves. I see myself not as object, but as agent or as subject. Okay? Now, we can have both these perspectives. As a matter of fact, all of us, we have both this perspective. That means we have disengaged perspective as well as engaged perspective. That means that sometimes I look at myself purely as an object, and sometimes I see myself as subject, or as agent. But it is never the case that simultaneously, we are both we are both disengaged and engaged. Now, here I will give you an example. Recently, many of you probably have seen, I saw a movie called Oppenheimer. Robert Oppenheimer, the very well-known physicist who was the director of that Manhattan Project, the atomic bomb, known for atomic bomb and all this. Now, in Oppenheimer, if you see that Oppenheimer, at one level, he was very excited that he was involved in the creation of an atomic bomb and all this, all kinds of things. But at another level, he could, after a point, he could realize the kind of disaster that would create on humanity. Okay, there will be total destruction. Okay, but still, Oppenheimer, of course, continued. Right. So, when he was in the lab or when he was in the office and all this and interacting with his colleagues, they are also very, very well-known physicists. Okay, but there he assumed the disengaged perspective. Right. But when he comes back from his office in the evening, okay, or some other time, okay, there he used to feel very morose. So even when there was a celebration and all this thing, he was not really party to that. Okay, though he was there, but he was actually in the other state, that is that engaged perspective. Okay, so this is the way you can see that how we can have two perspectives on ourselves as agent. One is the disengaged perspective, okay, and the other is the engaged perspective. And when I was seeing this movie called Oppenheimer, I felt in that way. Okay. Now, these two perspectives are sometimes called theoretical perspective, that is the disengaged perspective, and the engaged perspective is also called practical agency. So one is theoretical agency, other is called practical agency. Now, theoretical agency is associated, of course, with the disengaged perspective. Now, agency is used in a theoretical way on oneself. Okay, that is theoretical agency. Agency is restricted here in explanation and prediction of one's behavior. That is that is why, it is not that we always take this, we are always in the engaged perspective or the practical agency, but also we are in the theoretical mode, we are in the disengaged perspective, because we are actually concerned with explanation and prediction of my own behavior. At that time, you are looking at yourself from a distance, from a detached perspective. That is why you can explain your behavior and you also try to predict. Now, in daily life also, we often use sentences which are actually the expression of, disengaged perspective or theoretical agency. That is, for example, when we describe saying that this is the lectern, or this is a square table, or we say that Hyderabad is not very hot these days, or for example, we say that she is going to the class. Now, these are all descriptive statements. These are not really where agency in its engaged form is not involved. Okay. Now, and also you see this agency in its detached form. Okay. Now, or the detachment perspective takes its very, very regimented form. Okay. When you are really involved in science. For example, when a scientist is involved in a scientific work, at that time, okay, this disengaged form really takes in a very regimented way. Now, I will give you another example. Okay. Now, you see, you remember this movie a few years ago it came, called Munna Bhai MBBS. Many of you probably have seen that movie. Okay, now I remember one scene there. It is this, that in the first day of the class, okay, the newcomers, the freshers, they came, and the dean of that college, the principal, the dean of that college, who is a very crazy man, okay, now he was addressing to the students. So he was saying big things about his college, the glorious college and all this. Now, then he suddenly asked one young girl that, what is your ambition in life? So the girl said that, sir, my ambition in life is to be a good doctor. He said, fantastic, very good. And then that girl said afterwards that not only as good doctor, I want to treat my patient, but also as good friend of the patient. Ayyo, there the doctor, that dean, you see, that crazy man, okay, he was absolutely, I mean, he couldn't, he disliked it so much. He said, look, as doctors, we have come here not to make friends. Our task is only to see human body as machine, okay, and to just treat the way you treat machines, okay, right? So similarly, when you look at human body, you should no emotion, no friendship. You should look at your patient not as friend. There's nothing called friendliness involved here. Your task is to do the diagnosis and to cure him or her. Okay? So pure disengaged form. It is actually, I tell you, it is positivism in its highest glory, if you see. The dean was a positivist and nothing else. Okay, without knowing all this. Okay, so what I am saying is that when we say that when we are actually engaged in scientific research, okay, we are in the disengaged perspective, no doubt, and we have that disengaged perspective is in a very regimented form. Okay, that conversation between the principal and the student. The principal is saying that, look, we have come here not to make friends, but to be good doctors. So friendship का सवाल ही नहीं उठता इधर. So that girl kept quiet and all this. So this is the thing. Now, this is all about disengaged agency, but then we come to the practical agency. That is the involved or engaged agency. We call it practical agency. Here we see the link, the close link between agency and value. Okay, when we come to practical agency, okay, that means agency in its engaged perspective, or when I see myself within the perspective, within the engaged perspective, that is practical agency, there we see there is a close link between the way I function and value. Okay, they're linked up. My action is linked up with certain kinds of values. As practical agents, we are engaged with the world in a practical sense. Okay, not in a theoretical sense, in which when we are involved in scientific research, we are involved in a theoretical way. The agency is involved, but there's a theoretical agency, the disengaged form. But when we are actually assuming the practical agency, okay, the engaged perspective, at that time our interaction with the world is in a practical sense. Okay, so there actually you see the dark cloud as a threat, that Bangladeshi fisherman. It prompts the person, that fisherman, okay, immediately to do something. That the moment you see that dark cloud, the lightning, okay, so the fisherman immediately thinks of doing something. That means either come to the shore or to immediately to send some information to the naval guards or whatever. Okay, the various kinds of things. You do it. Okay, So there is a kind of action involved. Okay, you see the threat and you don't keep quiet there. Okay, you try your best to do something, okay, to rescue, okay, from, or to save from the situation. This is possible because you find the world is populated with values. Okay, values compel you to do something. Okay, so whether, for example, in the case of cruelty, when you see that example, yes, I remember this name of this philosopher. His name is Gilbert Harman. Okay, or if you know Harman. Now, so Harman is saying that the person who was driving, he was driving a car, and suddenly he saw this. He stopped the car, okay, and that person who was driving, he came to the site where children were rejoicing, literally, to burn the cat. So he came and tried to intervene, talk to the student, talk to those children and all this. Without knowing it, they were doing it. They thought that was very big fun. Okay, now what happened? So in the case of practical agency, okay, it prompts the person to do something. The moment you saw this, that there is a cruelty, you really try to go there and do something. Okay, so, and what really compels you to do this? It is the values which compel you to do this. Whereas this is not there when you are in the disengaged perspective or in theoretical perspective. Is that okay with you? Okay, now after this explanation, again the objections can come, because because the opponents, the critiques, they will not leave the matter so soon. Okay, now critiques can always point out here that, look, this whole idea of practical agency that you are talking about is an emotive response to the world. Why are you saying that this is a kind of an objective kind of response? But it is really basically an emotive response to the world. Now, either it is an emotive response to the world, which I was telling you in the beginning also, that values are basically, okay, we are projecting our emotions to the world. Okay, so here also they are saying the same thing, that our emotive response to the world, or it is a disposition to act under a certain situation. The disposition to act. I mean, for example, the standard example is this, that if you really put sugar in water, okay, then the sugar will be dissolved in water. So under that condition, otherwise sugar will not be dissolved, right? So the moment you put it in water or in any of the liquid, they will be dissolved. Okay, so one can also say that first is it may be an emotive response to the world, that there is some cruelty there, okay, and you saw that, immediately rush to the situation. Okay, so that's a kind of an emotive response, critic will say. Or it is possible that you are habituated in such a way, okay, that whenever such situation occurs, you immediately rush. Okay, so that is, as you know, the behaviorist conception of mind, okay, is a very influential concept of mind, and people largely, okay, follow this kind of dispositional idea. Okay, they may not be always crude behaviorists, they may be sophisticated behaviorists also. So under this dispositional thing, okay, people really try to explain our mind, our values, our approach to the world. Okay, now this is where, if you say that this is our emotive response to the world, or it is a kind of a disposition, okay, to act under a certain situation, that is behavioral basically. Okay, now critics say this, then what will be the reply to this? The reply will be very interesting. The reply will be that, look, that emotion which you are talking about basically, okay, that means basically certain desires and feelings. Is that okay? Which is in the mind. Now, there is a distinction there that is made. One is desire and another is desirability. Okay? Now, what does it mean? It essentially means that, look, desires are not, self-standing. They don't stand alone. Okay? I have desire in relation to something. And what is that something? That something which is desirable. Today, right now, I desire to have a cup of coffee. Now, this desire is not self-standing desire. It is not that I have got this desire. Okay? There is something which is called desirable. That means I know that if I have coffee now, okay, I will feel better. Okay? Now, so this always, remember, they are saying to the critiques that, look, desire and desirability distinction is very important, since you are always saying that is an emotive response to the world. Okay? But no. You see, all these emotions, okay, which are expressed through either through desire or through some other mental terms, feelings, okay, approval and various things. So they are not really self-standing. Okay, they do not stand alone. Okay, but they are ultimately related to something, and that something is called desirable. So desirability, and now what are desirabilities? In this kind of situation, desirabilities are essentially values. Okay, so when a person looks at the dark cloud, that fisherman in his position looks at the dark cloud and lightning, okay, he wants to do something, and there he saw threat there, and threat is a value here. So literally he observed, okay, if you can say, threat becomes a kind of perceptible property to him, and that is why he thought of doing something. When a person, he finds that there is a cruelty going on because the cat is being burned, okay, so immediately there is a desire in you which compels you, okay, to go and check that, to resist that, to prevent that. Okay, so why did you go there? And that is where they say that there is a value there. That cruelty is a value which you observe there, that there is a cruelty. Okay, so this is where we say that this is the normative kind of demand on us, a kind of ought, okay, that demands on you. Okay, so normative demand, it's called normative demand, okay, that really takes you, okay, to do something. So in another way we can say that there is a normative urge, and that is what is called motivational power. Okay, that means that I motivate to do something, okay, whenever such a situation happens. Okay, so there is a kind of normative urge, and the motivation that I get it, that really is due to that normative urge that we have. So desires are never self-standing. Okay, so the way you are saying that ethics, okay, or values can be explained in terms of emotions, that is not true. Okay, they are really, why it is not true? The reason is that desires are not self-standing. They are always related to something which is desirable, and the desirabilities or desirable means basically values. And I literally see value there as a perceptible property, and therefore there is a kind of a normative urge within me that compels me to do certain action. So this is the way how we can argue that, look, this fact-value dichotomy, that absolute separation which you make, okay, that is not really, how far it is legitimate, that itself is questionable on the basis of this kind of perspective. And there, what you are essentially, the argument that you are essentially giving is from the point of view of the way we as agents, we really work. Are you getting it? Okay. Now, with this, I quickly come to the other part, the linguistic kind of argument. That is what I call, what is called fact-value entanglement. Okay. Now, facts and values are entangled with each other. I told you. Now, this is where I give an example from Putnam. Okay. Now, Putnam actually said that most of our ethical concepts are thick concepts. He called thick ethical concepts. Now, thick ethical concepts essentially means that they are not intrinsically moral concepts or ethical concepts only. Okay? These ethical concepts are combined with certain factual elements also. That's why they are called thick ethical concepts. Now, for Putnam, most of the ethical concepts are thick ethical concepts, right? Now, his example is like this. He gives the example of a cruel teacher. So it is this, that you ask your neighbor, what sort of person is your child's teacher? Okay. And the neighbor really replies, he is very cruel. Now, to say that he is very cruel, that's one answer. Not that the teacher is good or the teacher is bad or teacher doesn't explain. No, that's nothing of that sort. The moment you ask this question, the answer that your neighbor gives is this, that he is very cruel. Now, to say that that he is very cruel, that explains. Okay, that explains means that he is a cruel man and he is a cruel teacher. Okay. You do not say that, look, he is a very cruel man, but he is a good teacher. A cruel man cannot be a good teacher. Is that okay? So he is saying that after this answer, none of these things are there. You cannot, for example, say that, look, whenever he is not cruel, at that time he is very good in terms of teaching. No. You never say anything about cruel teacher, about his teacher, about his teaching ability. You just say that he is very cruel. So he is cruel both as a person and as a teacher. Okay. So this is where the normative aspect of cruel really comes into the picture. But similarly, cruel can also have a descriptive meaning. For example, historians, they describe at length, okay, the cruelty of a monarch. For example, long back, people like Genghis Khan came. Okay, I mean, it seems that there was real cruelty there. How he looted and all kinds of things. So various kinds of stories. I mean, stories means these are real stories which we hear from other. Or, for example, even the recent example. I mean, I'm not going into the politics part of it, but this bombing in Gaza Strip, okay, and how people indiscriminately died. Okay, innocent people. I mean, they have nothing to do with the terrorist group or Hamas or anything. They're innocent children, innocent women, men, and all this. Okay? Indiscriminately, there was bombing. And who was right initially on all this? Let's not go into that. But the fact remains that there was tremendous cruelty, okay, against humanity. Just what happened when atom bomb was dropped in Hiroshima. Okay. Now, so similar thing, that cruelty has this normative aspect, as well as cruelty can have purely descriptive aspect. Okay, where you describe, okay, the cruelty, like the historians that do it, that what happened in so-and-so's time, the cruel kind of monarch, and how he really, provoked number of rebels, okay, in his kingdom. Okay, so this is where he said that you have cruel has both normative meaning and descriptive meaning. And from there, we can really make another conclusion, that is, concepts have layers of meaning. It is probably not justified to say that the concepts have only one kind of meaning. Just like Wittgenstein said that a concept can have, or a word can have multiple meanings. Okay, that multiple use. Okay, that's why he really comes to this whole idea of meaning as use. In a similar way, okay, here also, if you see, he's saying, Putnam is saying that concepts have layers of meaning. And by layers of meaning, he of course not talking about the multiplicity of meaning like Wittgenstein, but he is basically pointing out that concepts, that ethical concepts which we are seeing, they have also, factual aspects, okay? They convey facts. That's one of the meanings. The other meaning is the ethical meaning, okay? Now, there are a number of examples that he has given, and there are so much of controversy, I'm not going into that, okay? But the essential point is this, that concepts have layers of meaning, and they are really overlapping. These meanings are not that there is normative, then below that there is factual, no, nothing of the, or descriptive, nothing of that sort. They are overlapping, okay, and both normative and descriptive are therefore overlapping with each other, and that is why this entanglement comes. But there is only one criticism I just want to point it out. That is R.M. Hare, Richard Hare, is a very well-known person, okay, points out that, look, the kind of entanglement that Putnam is talking about, he also accepts that there is a descriptive component there, okay, in any kind of moral concepts, okay. Moral concepts are never pure kind of moral concept. So he is pointing out that, but he's saying there are no entanglements. The way he's saying that there are layers of meaning, and these layers of meaning really they are overlapping and all this. He's saying he's against this overlapping thesis, and this is where he is saying that fact and value, the descriptive component and the evaluative components, they are two components. Okay, Putnam is against this. He said, no, they are not components. Okay, they are really different layers, and these layers are overlapping layers. Okay, but he is saying that there is a kind of strict kind of component. One is a descriptive component, other is the evaluative components. So values are basically motivation. Okay, for R.M. Hare, why values are there? You see, R.M. Hare also, basically an emotivist kind of, belonging to emotivist tradition of ethics, which says that the same Humean tradition, but much more sophisticated than Hume's original theory. But in essence, the same thing, that morality is basically an expression of your desires and feeling, basically an expression of emotion. So R.M. Hare, though accepts that fact and value, that we do not have pure evaluative concepts. So fact and value are involved, facts are involved, but they are not entangled. They are two compartments, and the task of value basically is to some kind of motivation to give approval. Ethics is, as you know, for the emotivists, basically, when I say that this is good, this means that I approve this action. Okay, so it is basically right and wrong, good or bad, essentially is approval or disapproval. Okay, so this is the way I would say there are two components. Now, this is a wrong way of looking at ethical concepts, because why it's a wrong way of ethical concepts? Here, we do not see how moral concepts are used. Okay, moral concepts, whenever moral concepts are used, there is an ethical point of view is associated with it. Moral concepts are not used only for approval or disapproval. Okay? Certain kinds of expression or motivation. Right? Okay? But moral concepts, whenever they are used with certain kind of ethical point of view. And this is the way how we learn moral concepts. Because to learn a moral concept means to learn the particular moral point of view that is expressed through this concept. So therefore, what happens that both these two, that is factual part and the evaluative part, the valuational part, or fact and value, okay, they are really entangled with each other because they really form, okay, layers of meaning which are really overlapping layers of meaning. Okay, so that is why, so from both this point of view, okay, one is this epistemological point of view, that is from the point of view of agency. If you look at fact and value, then you will see that fact and value, the absolute separation between the two, okay, is not always tenable, particularly when you are in the practical agency. That means when you are in the engaged perspective on ourselves. In the disengaged perspective, it's very much possible. Okay, but when you are in the engaged perspective, it is not possible. And why it's not possible, I told you. And also, from the point of view of ethical concepts, if you see, there also will, that means from the point of view of language, if you see that how ethical concepts, they have, overlapping layers of meaning between fact and value. So this is how I really try to, address to this problem, that why this absolute, which is a time-honored kind of dichotomy, that why fact and value cannot be maintained in that strict sense. Okay, thank you for all this.